Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the SimRacing Expo Podcast with me as your host, which will be the case, I guess, most of the time. And I'm also joined by that beautiful man, Danny the Juicer Gooser. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm super, man. It's Thursday. We are recording our first episode of the podcast, and I'm pumped, man.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be like the rest of the audience here, to be honest. What is this podcast going to be like? I don't really know. I'm putting it together, but kind of I'm a little bit in the dark. What are we going to be discussing most months?
I think most months it's obviously about SimRacing Expo and also developments of SimRacing, and especially since we are connected to most of the exhibitors quite well, I think we invite some exhibitors and they talk about the gritty stuff they never talk about. You know, we're asking questions that are maybe some uncomfortable and try to get the biggest news out them.
So we're going to get some exclusives. We're going to hear stories about the expo, maybe hear from some of your favorite content creators, especially today. Maybe get some exclusives in terms of the expo itself from our side. So yeah, that's kind of what this will
loose
be about.
lips, man.
Oh, I've got very loose lips, that's for sure. But yeah, we'll be giving you any of the latest news in terms of what's coming up with the expo, of course, and you know, maybe there's some exclusives in terms of we can announce who's going to be there and all of that good stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But Danny, first things first, have you got any exclusives for us?
Now,
yeah, I mean, right now.
I mean, some people maybe noticed that our website changed a bit, but nothing happened so far after SimRacing Expo. And since I have my new position, I'm more than deeply involved into the new website, which will be way more cleaner, way easier to navigate, and especially, which is always important also in SimRacing, way faster. So that's coming up. And to the time where we're recording now, I think we are nearly 90% done and we'll be soft launching it. So if you hear the episode, maybe it's already live.
Yeah, and the link will be posted below in the description. I guess that's how all this works in YouTube and wherever you're watching around the world or whatever software you're using to watch us as well, or listen to us. But yeah, you're going to have a lot more information in terms of our intro over the next few months. This is just a short, sharp sort of, hi, we're here. We're going to be doing an expo once a month. But I tell you what is not very small. It is our first ever guest. 966,000 subscribers on YouTube, 188,000 followers on Instagram, 162,000 followers on X, a Praga Cup UK champion. We've also got 6 wins out and 7 podiums during his championship winning season, 3 wins and 4 NLS podiums in the GT4 class last year in the NLS. With 11 professional career race wins, we have the GOAT of sim racing. It's Mr. Jimmy Broadbent. And as if by magic, here is Mr. Jimmy Broadbent. Mate, how you doing?
That's a good intro, mate. The money I paid for that, well worth it. well worth it. So yeah, I'm all good. All okay. A little bit sleep deprived, but otherwise good.
Yeah, the first person in the history of sim racing to have a child. First of all, tell us how that happened. No, let's not go into that deep. How's the most important person of all of this? How's Annie?
Yeah, Annie's doing really well. I mean, we're both sort of just suffering with the sleep deprivation, but she's recovered really well. You wouldn't even, if you look at her, you wouldn't even know she's just like had a kid recently, bounced back amazingly. So, yeah, super proud of how she's been through all this. And yeah, it's just now getting used to having this literal moving potato in our house.
Yeah, no, it is basically just keeping them alive for the first year, to be honest. So you've got a lot of that to be dealing with. What is it like being a dad? What have you noticed in terms of changes in yourself?
Not much different, to be honest, at the moment. I mean, a lot of the priorities sort of change instantly. It's strange how you worry about a lot of vapid stuff before you have a child, and then suddenly all that stuff goes away, and all that matters is the safety and well-being of that child, of Guy, for us. So we're just trying to make sure we do the best job we can now while he's small and diddly, and it's easy to make mistakes at the moment, I think, and we're just really focusing on that. So that's why I've not really been around too much on the social stuff.
Yeah, so it's a strange feeling, isn't it? As soon as you see your child, you would instantly have that feeling of, I would jump in front of a train for that kid. Like it's so weird to to explain, but you have that. I'm going to protect this one at all costs.
My fault that he's got the Broadbent brain. He's got the massive head. I'm like, yes, boy, Megamind, let's go.
Wow, Megamind. Right, well, we know you as, in my opinion, the GOAT of sim racing content creation. But how did it start for you in sim racing? Obviously, you didn't just turn a camera on, but how did you actually get involved in sim racing?
I think being the GOAT is debatable, but I appreciate the kind words. When did it start? I mean, I started sim racing like. It depends if you want to say like wheel and pedal and seat sim racing or sitting there with gamepad sim racing. Because sitting there with like a gamepad, I've been playing racing games and treating them as sims since I was like 6, 7 years old. I've just loved that stuff forever. Like playing old F1 97, like the TOCA touring cars games 1 and 2. Love those games. Played them to death. Anything like that, Gran Turismo, I just sunk a lot of hours into. And as I got a little bit older. I was playing, I think it was Gran Turismo 5. I had this amazing battle with some guy online. I thought to myself, well, this is so rare because when you drove in open lobbies back then, it was just carnage. Just anything that you either get killed T1 or you gap the entire field because they've all been busy killing each other in T1. And after having this amazing race, I thought, wow, that was so cool. I wonder if people like organise stuff like this. And it turns out they did. And it sort of inspired me to go and then get my first wheel and pedals, which was a Logitech G27, I think it was, and actually use that in a proper way. And it just transformed everything from me. And that was back in about 2012 when it became super serious. And as for videos, my first video actually came out in 2012. It was a very, very poorly edited video of me driving a AE86 at Scuba Circuit in Japan because I was obsessed with Best Motoring at the time. What a show that is, and a hot version, all that stuff. And it was just to show my friends, like, hey, look how cool this is. I mean, it wasn't very cool at all. It was pretty lame, to be honest. But just from there, really, things just got more and more. I made more videos. I started talking them eventually. And before you know it, I'm sitting here now, sort of knocking on the door of a million somehow, a million subscribers. No idea how that's happened.
It's a crazy number to think of. Like, imagine 1 million people in one place. Like, it's just, you can't really imagine it, to be completely honest. Gran Turismo 5, that was the first online experience for you. For me, it's like Project Gotham Racing. I don't know if you remember that on the Xbox. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't on the original Xbox. I played my first online experience actually in racing games. Probably Test Drive Unlimited. Because we didn't have internet in our house until I was, on the sort of mid-teenage years or just before that. And my mum's pretty old school. But I did that, and I remember playing. I think, oh my god, this is so cool! And just like cruising around the cars I liked, and then I got involved in Project Gotham 3, I think, on the Xbox, doing like doing time trial stuff and try like break records. So I really enjoyed doing that. But in terms of actually racing wheel to wheel, it wasn't until really I was on PC until we did that properly, apart from some controller stuff on GT5.
How many times did you get disconnected from a race because one of your parents were having to make a phone call or something?
Now, luckily we skipped dial-up, which is a godsend. But I mean, to be honest, like the thing that, as I said, took me out of most races is just some absolute hero going, "Oh, I don't have the brake button bound," and you just end up being just shoveled off into T1 at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But yeah, otherwise it was quite fun those early days because you didn't really take it so seriously, or I didn't know you could take it seriously back then.
Thankfully, sim races come on such a long way that we don't have any accidents at Turn 1 anymore. So yeah,
none.
It's the perfect esport now. What's it like in 2025 actually? So you've been around for a long time, one of the first content creators within sim racing. But what are the main differences now? I guess ease of making content, but what are the differences between now and when you started?
I mean, in terms of like, to tackle the first bit of sim racing, I think that it's just much bigger. It's much more mature now. It knows what it is now. Back in 2012, 2013, the only real place you can get a good race was still iRacing, and that was arguably not the best feeling thing at the time. It had very certain characteristics to it, like the old term ice racing. Nowadays, you can have a slide and kind of get away with it, although your tyres go to the moon temperature-wise. But back in the day, you had even the tiniest bit of sort of counter steer, and you end up just having a massive spin and crashing. But back then, like, average I rating as well was probably a lot lower. I mean, you go into any, I mean, you'll know now, Luke, given like hanging around with the guys you hang around. But everyone's like 14k I rating now. So, oh god, really? Like, I've got like 4 point something k. I think I've got a big dick, but then these guys come along with like 14k. I'm like, ah, cool. Well, maybe it's not so big. But what else do I say about sim racing from that time? I'd say there's also less choice as well. Things didn't work as well. Things were very janky. Like, you had 2 or 3 wheels to choose from. The games outside of iRacing were heavily mods driven, so if you didn't have any idea how to use mods or like how folder structures worked on in these games, which doesn't sound like a big thing to learn, but when you're completely PC illiterate and you go from that to that, it's quite intense. It's just a lot easier now, and a lot, I guess, sturdier. It all tends to work more now, broadly speaking.
Yeah, you just mentioned, the high I rating drivers. The worst thing about knocking around with people like that is that they treat you like them. So when you're nowhere near the ability of them, the amount of abuse you receive is just, well, you've heard it firsthand, actually. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. You obviously always had a passion. You wanted to drive real cars in real life, and you've had that opportunity over the last few years. And ultimately, you won your first championship in, well, would it be 2022 now? Was that?
22, yeah.
With Mr. Much, Gordy Much, in the Prague UK Championship. Can you tell us a little bit about that season, how it came about? For maybe someone out there who's thinking, I fancy a crack at something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to start us all off is that I was incredibly fortunate with my opportunity to go and do that, and it came from basically because of COVID. I mean, COVID for a lot of sim racing people was actually was good for business, so to speak. It sounds horrible to say that, but that's kind of what it was. Whilst the world was sort of disappearing around us, people were flocking online to escape that, as I was too. And sim racing became massive. It became mainstream, and I mean that had downsides as well, of course. But the upside to that for people like myself, for Super GT, for any streamers really, is that just the audience increased, 5 or 6 times what it usually was. And that sort of helped put me on the radar in front of people who maybe wouldn't have seen me before. And one of those people was Mark Harrison over at Praga Cars, who just thought, oh, this could be fun. Let's put this idiot YouTuber in a car and see how much damage he causes. And somehow it all went okay. I mean, it was a very surreal moment getting that phone call. I mean, I've spoken about it in various places before, but you basically have someone offering you, like, here's your dream. It's far beyond what you're capable of right now. Do you want to do it? And you have no choice but to say yes. But then you put the phone down. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ, what did I just say yes to? What have I got to do here? And at the time, I had what I like to affectionately call the gamer body. Something that comes with sitting down for massive periods of time per day. And I had to get fit. I had to make sure that I had all my admin stuff on the side sorted out, to get myself a racing license, trying to get the right license for the car, because the Praga isn't, it is technically like a club-based car, but because it's of the horsepower per ton, you can't go in with a standard race national license, race club license. You have to have the race national, which is the equivalent of like an A license in Gran Turismo, if that makes sense. Anyway, that all happened, and then getting in the car for the first time, man, I shat myself, dude. It was so scary. Because you turn on the car and you realise, oh, it's on, and it's like vibrating and there's noise, and the throttle's responding to my foot. I'm doing that. Oh no, like I'm in control of this machine. And the first thing I made sure I did once I pulled out the pit lane, now I didn't stall, by the way, out the pit lane, which is pretty good, was just, I said to myself, you've got to put your foot down, Jimmy, otherwise you never will. You just coast around, and after I did that, it became a lot easier. But what I then didn't realise is that I wasn't actually the GOAT. When I got in the car, what? I'm not the best driver ever, but I'm so good at sim racing. What's going on? And then that's where Gordy sort of came into the story a little bit and helped me find the speed. But a lot of the speed was already there in terms of from sim racing and understanding how car dynamics work. But the experience to actually go and then apply that to a real car, you need that seat time to give yourself, I guess it's just confidence in the fact the car will do that. Because going through the Craner curves flat at 140 mile an hour is fine in sim. In real life, your brain is screaming at you, like, what are you doing? You mad bastard, stop, we're going to die. And you have to just turn that off and go, no, it's going to be fine. I know it's going to be fine. I have to believe in this invisible force that I can't see. It's fine. But yeah, Gordy really helped there. Gordy, what an exceptional driver he is. I'm sad that he hasn't had as many drives as he deserves. He's someone who can drag any box to places that it doesn't deserve to be, and drag anyone to places they don't deserve to be, including myself. So, yeah, it was an amazing season though. To win it was very surreal.
Yeah, talking to Gordy, it must have been a match made in heaven because obviously he understands sim racing like massively from your perspective, being one of the very top sim racers as well. He's just a bloody good bloke as well, to be honest. So you kind of got the best of both worlds.
He's lovely, and he doesn't mince his words either. You sort of need that in a coach. So I mean, I would go for a corner, and he'd pause it, and he'd go, right, Jimmy, what the hell are you doing here, mate? It's like, what's going on here? Well, what do you mean that the apex is here? You're wide by like a meter. It's like, oh, but no, I don't want to run too much of the curb. I'm like, I didn't ask you. Get over here.
And that's what you need sometimes.
That tough love, it really worked. It really worked because I think I went from being sort of middle of the pack in the amateur field to being the fastest amateur driver. We were the fastest pairing, and that's why we won, because he brought me up to close to his level, and it just, a good coach really helps.
That's fantastic. You actually nearly alluded to it earlier when you received that phone call. A lot of people watching from outside would be like, "Oh, just see opportunity. Oh, of course you're just going to get into a race car and race. That's what we all want to do." Was there any struggles psychologically before you got to the race car? Am I good enough? Should I be doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with those things still today. Before every race, I get in the car and I think, the silliest thing is every time I get to a racetrack, I think, can I drive? How do I do this? I don't remember. Oh God, and you overthink it. You go, right. Like for example, the Nürburgring. The Nürburgring's like this really fun, flowing circuit, and once you're on it, you're in it and you understand it completely. But when you're thinking about it, you lack any of like the information that the car would give you, and you think to yourself, oh God. What if the car randomly moves in a weird way? And then when you're doing that in real life, you just catch it because that's how cars work. But the first night before that Praga test I was talking about earlier, where I got in there for the first time, we were in this hotel in Wales. I remember just like sitting in my room and thinking really seriously to myself, like I might just leave, I might just run away because I don't think I deserve to be here with all these drivers who talk differently from me, who understand cars differently. You talk about setup and stuff like that, and I'm just like, well, car go fast. That was how I saw myself, and I'm glad that I didn't, because look what happened, But it's something that I think about a lot when getting into cars, because I know there are other sim racers who have turned racers who are better than me and maybe deserve the shot more than I do, but there is also the argument that racing is more than about being fast, unfortunately. It's also about being a good marketing tool, and I guess that's where I come in.
100%. I think you also, as someone who's worked within motorsport, I've kind of seen it from, not from your perspective, but I've seen behind the curtain. Pretty much everyone's winging something. Like, no one's 100% at everything, at every aspect of driving or the marketing or other aspects of it, using the sim to prepare. Obviously you would be very strong at that, whereas other drivers wouldn't be. So he realised that actually no one really knows what they're doing 100% anyway. So you're kind of just maybe lacking in one area where you're stronger in other areas.
Yeah, I think so. And that's how I sort of felt initially. And, the racing in the last couple of years at the Nürburgring has really changed how I view myself as a driver a bit for the good, which is nice. But at that time, in what was a very tricky car, a prototype with no ABS or TC, and trying to learn how to get the most out of that, it's like jumping into an F1 car straight away with no sim racing experience. You're like, okay, I got this, and it's far beyond what you're capable of to get the most out of it. But it really was. Yeah, I'll remember that experience forever, because it was, looking back at it now, you don't realise how, in the moment, how special it was and how rare it was to get a chance like that to really drive that much,
Yeah, such a unique car, unique experience, obviously winning the championship. And then you moved to last year and you took part in one of my favourite series to watch. I actually did a few watch-alongs of it, so it was good to see you in the car. The NLS series, where you got to race with Steve Brown, of course, who is Super GT, Misha Schauderin, and who else did you race with in that series?
That's Manuel Metzger, our pro driver, the guy that makes us look good, basically.
But you surprised a lot of people, Jimmy. From from my perspective, you were bloody quick. Like, I didn't expect you to be as fast as you were. So how much did Praga help in your development to be able to transition that into the GT4 car around the Nordschleife?
You know what? The Praga didn't help at all. I don't think because the Praga is such a unique car that a lot of things that you would do in the Praga, you wouldn't do anything else. The thing that helped me the most was what I did in my own time. So, I mean, I did, outside of the Praga, I did a couple of Fun Cup races, which are just these hilarious little VW Beetle things, if you guys don't know what they are, with like 130 horsepower, but they move. And having a car that moves around a lot is super important in understanding like the dynamics of how vehicles just work, because a Praga being this little aero thing doesn't really apply to something like, I don't know, a 330i, which we drove in our first year, which is a saloon with slicks and no aero. So it drives like an old touring car, which is something you can't practice in a Praga. I also I built myself what I called it the practice car. It's a little MX-5 on throttle bodies, like 180 horsepower, runs on semi-slick tires, and I in my downtime in 2022, I really put a lot of time into, right, okay, let's improve, let's go to a circuit, go to a track day, and just run laps for the entire day. I did so much of that in 22, like a lot more than I videoed or recorded or put out on stream, and that really helped me more because that car, again, no ABS, no TC, and it's always moving. Like, you hit the brakes, you can feel when a tyre locks, or you come out the corner a bit too quick, you can feel when the LSD locks up, and it goes, okay, now we're starting to move in a way that isn't going to help us out the corner quickly. And because it isn't this like really stiffly sprung race car, you can really obviously feel how the weight moves around, and that was so helpful to me because the Nürburgring is just that. It's just weight transfer and medium speed corners. So you get in something like the 330i, and all that practice you've done in the car, which does have that movement, immediately pays off. I think I was faster in that car than anyone else who drove it in our team. I really, really gelled with that car because of the practice we had. And then GT4 is like a step above that with a little bit of aero, and that's where maybe having the Prague experience helped a bit. You go, oh, fast corner, I just won't brake as much, and the car will do it. But I really think that just driving a little shitbox around Brands Hatch for 4 or 5 hours was more valuable to me than 2 seasons of Praga for NLS.
Fair enough. I think my biggest highlight was the video of you going onto the grid. I'm not sure which round it was. I think it might be the 24 actually. And you're just like, holy shit! What? Oh my god! What is this? Like, what were your particular highlights? And maybe mention a couple of lowlights from the season.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a highlight, that video. I mean, I choke up a bit in that video, and the thing is, I wish I could have captured why that was, because we were coming by that little grandstand. I don't know what that chicane is called. Maybe it's like the Ford chicane or something, on the GP circuit. A little left-right before you go down to the hairpin on the GP circuit. And as you came around to the right-hander, I saw people in the stands with like a little Bilstein flag. They all stood up and like cheered as I went by, and that was so emotional because you think these people are here for us, to see us and support us. And yeah, I mean, I'm an emotional guy anyway, but seeing that sort of thing was just, it's very surreal to think that you go from never any outside possibility of even being at a racetrack to then being at a circuit in a car and people are cheering you on. It was amazing. But the N24 also turned out to be a bit of a low light because of the weather. I mean, I think we did 7 and a bit hours in the end, and we basically didn't win that race because of how the pit stops worked out.
Oh.
If we had stayed out a bit longer and not boxed when the red was red flag, or if we had, because our strategy was to was made for 24 hours, not for 7, we would just have been in the lead in that cycle, and we would have won that part of the race. So, like, for me, to have a second placing on my mantle, like, it doesn't count. Like, it doesn't count for anyone, that race, I don't think. But that's a story for another day. But I think, one of our best moments is when we had 0 issues at all. Everything went completely to plan, and we won by over a lap, including beating, I think, the Kobayashi car in our class. And it just goes to show how much pace the car has and how much we will have now after that time at the ring. And Steve as well. I don't want to sit here and like tell everyone how great I am, but like Steve as well. Well, what a driver, And it's people who have just come from nothing, and because of YouTube, have been given these chances. And look how quick that we can be. Imagine giving that opportunity to someone who has even more raw talent, and putting them in a car and seeing what they could do. But yeah, it's been an amazing season, and to get to drive that GT4 car and get to go through all the different conditions, to like having sort of scraps with who was in that car? There was a Timo Glock car, and there was another driver in there. Maybe it was like Blake Molan or something like that. And I was like catching this guy, on pace in the race, and I thought to myself, "Come on, Jimmy, you're doing it. This is insane." And all that is based in sim racing. All that time, all that driving, all that sort of mentality comes from sim racing, and then it's just applied to the real stuff. And I don't know. I think I'm rambling a bit now, but it's really surreal to look back at it all, because sometimes you just try and put a marker behind it and focus on the next thing. But I think it's nice to reflect,
For sure, mate. Like, this is what this podcast is all about. And, something I always like to say is no one can ever take those moments away from you, right? Once you've experienced it, once you were chasing down a favorite driver, or, a driver that you may have been watching for years, and having more pace than them, or the trophies you win, the experiences of going through the crowd, in the pit walk, and those things can never be taken away from you. It doesn't matter how you got there, you've done it, That's very, very important, that you can be able to soak that up and be able to relay that message back to people and have that memory.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've obviously gone from sim racing, content creation, then into real driving, but you have been very clever in terms of expanding your portfolio, if you like, and you now are heavily invested within Abruzzi. You've got yourself some involvement there. If you want to talk us through a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so as of, how long has it been now? A year and a bit, I've been sort of co-owner of Abruzzi. We're a sim racing hardware reseller, well, originally anyway. We also do some other bits as well, including karting gear and racing gloves and stuff like that. And the idea behind that is that, I know sim racing, and so do the guys who are also involved in this. And I figure that it would just be nice to have another avenue to explore and to try and make work. We're trying to, at the moment, do something a little bit different to everyone else who just resell stuff. It's a very easy thing to go and do, but we're super focused on things like customer service. We really try and make sure we get everything, any sort of inquiry we get is answered within like 5-10 minutes, apart from the weekend. we chill on the weekend. But we have that, and also we're looking to try and do things like open days and involve people more, maybe aren't traditionally involved in sim racing or sim stuff, and try and expose them to this world, see how fun it is. We actually did our first sort of little trial run recently. We had a load of guys round from the industrial estate that we work on, and they're all blown away by it all. And it's amazing how many people enjoy this little hobby if they get the chance to be exposed to it. Because the rig I'm sitting in right now, I don't know, 4 or 5k. If I wanted to go buy us off a shelf, we can do something very similar to this for half of that and give you the same experience. And that's sort of what our goal is: try and deliver a more affordable, a more accessible sim racing experience.
Yeah, we take it for granted a bit, Jimmy, don't we? Been doing this for so long. You put your rig and you sit in it, and you're just like, "Oh, cool, doing more laps." And then you see someone do it for the first time, and you see their eyes light up, and you're like, "Man, that's what it used to feel like." It's it's so cool what we do. But again, we take it for granted a little bit, maybe.
It's exactly like that. Sometimes Ben, who's one of the other owners, says to me like, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this idea." I'm like, "Oh, are you sure?" we could go for this wheel and go for this for maximum rigidity and do this. He goes, yeah, but Jimmy, this is for someone who's like just getting in for the first time and doesn't know about any of this stuff. So we don't have to go and spend £1 million to make that work, where we could spend, you know, a lot less than that and then pass that on to the consumer and just try and give them a good experience at the bat. Because I think a lot of people, if you go, oh, I'm interested in sim racing, I've got like £5,000 to spend, what can I get? We'll go, okay, let's spend £5,000. When in reality, you kind of don't want to do that. You want to go and spend a good base amount of cash and get something nice in place. And then when you're interested in going a bit further, then you start upgrading. Because if you have I've got a Moser R21 here, 21 newton meters of force feedback. You give that to someone who's never raced on a sim before, and they go, oh, 100%, and they do this, and then their wrists goes all different angles, and you have to go to court. It's not. You don't need that. You know, you don't need to have super high-end stuff to have a good sim racing experience. And I think that we that's what we try and like champion, is that you can have that stuff. And don't get me wrong, this stuff is good. There's a reason why it exists, but you can have a very, very good experience for a fraction of the cost and not have someone push that on you. So that's kind of how we operate.
No, that's really, really cool. Good to see that you're broadening your horizons and utilising what you've built really to put yourself in those positions. We're obviously on the SimRacing Expo podcast, so it would be rude not to mention, what does the SimRacing Expo mean to you? We've not seen you for a couple of years because obviously you've been doing other things like racing for real. But you have you have taken part in the past when it was a lot smaller than it is today. But what are your memories of the SimRacing Expo?
Being very hungover, I think, Luke, is my memory of the sim racing.
I'm a host, Jimmy. I do not drink on these weekends, so
no, I know you don't. I remember one day, I think sharing a lodge with Team Redline, and oh my god, what a terrible experience! Those guys go hard. But for the actual expo itself, yeah, I mean, it was so cool. It was back at the ring when I last went. It was so cool to see everyone in the same place at the same time, because a lot of people are just names on the internet. You know, oh, it's this guy, it's car driver 69. You know, oh, great. And then you see him online in real life. Sorry, and it's just, oh, it's an actual physical person. And it's just very cool to see that community come together like that, and then see all the different brands out there trying different things, and it's you know it's like a trade show, isn't it? So you go out and you see all these people showing off all these cool new gadgets you didn't even know existed. But I didn't need to go to one again. I meant to go to this year's one, but I don't know how Mish did it. Or was it Steve? I think Steve went to this one.
Yeah, but he didn't tell us till really late. So like we sort of shoehorned him in. We had a nice interview on stage and stuff, which is good to see. But yeah, there's so many people wanted to see him. Yeah,
I mean we were like, oh, we'll try and go. It was literally on a race weekend, and it was like, oh, we have to then get in the car, drive all the way here, drive all the way back there, and it was a bit much for us at the time. But Steve apparently it is a bit of a unit in the car. But yeah, I do need to come along to one soon, because it's just nice to be at. It's nice to see everyone, you know, and it's nice to see what's going on in the sim racing world.
Yeah, let's organise something. Let's get something sorted, man. We can do some fun on stage, or whatever you want to do, mate. But we'll get something figured out over the next few months, that's for sure. This is what I want to talk about. The most exciting thing for me is the Zolder 23-hour charity race that you do every year. For the first time last year, I wasn't working, so I was actually able to take part, although it was stressful. But let's just talk about your experiences with it. Why is it called the Zolder 23-hour, first and foremost?
Yeah, I get that question so much. I like to make up little stories each time, but the actual real story is in the first year, it was meant to be a 24-hour race. And we chose Zolder because for some reason, I don't really remember how it started. Zolder is a bit like a meme in my little community, where people would always come into the circuit and into the stream and ask, oh, Jimmy, what track are you racing at today? And it was like the Rude Sandstorm meme. People would just reply with, it's Zolder. Oh, it's German Zolder, it's French Zolder, stuff like that. And obviously people would just leave knowing less than they did when they joined, which is pretty much my stream experience. But then, so we did the race there, and I set up the race myself. People who know me will know that I'm just a bit of an idiot. I can't really do anything apart from yap and drive sometimes. I'm not like an admin guy. I'm not an organisation guy. I can't do any of that stuff. So I forgot to put driver swaps on. And about an hour into the race, everyone's like, Jimmy, we can't we can't switch drivers. It's like, oh, okay, Christ. So I redid it all. for 23 hours, and then it just sort of stuck from there. I found it was like a really nice nod to like the charity that we support, which is the Mine charity. Just a little bit of imperfection, but it makes it that imperfection makes the event. It makes it unique, and ever since then, it's been 23 hours.
Yeah, no, it's some event, man. Like I was very tired after it last year, but like just the sheer amount of people to take part in it, it's quite mesmerizing to be honest. Obviously, we had the inter-team battle between Tony Kanaan and Max. Max was on my team, and we had the Papaya family giving out penalties to the team. The Shack Dwellers team, should I say? But what?
We love that, man.
What was your best memories of the event? Because there are so many.
I mean, yeah, there are loads of them. We've been. Was that our 6th year or our 5th year? I think it was our 6th year because we got a big cake from Mine saying 6 on it, which is very nice of them. It's just, I love how big of an event it's become in the community. It's become like a really important event that people want to take part in, and not just sort of the average sim racer, but we've had, as you say, we've had Tony Kanaan, we've had Max Verstappen take part. I mean, we had the Luke Crane take part. I mean, I got Gordy Much basically playing with me for a stint. Like that sort of thing. It's just so much fun to have all these big names involved and take it in the spirit of the race. No one's butthurt about it, as you say. Like I think I can't remember how many penalties the Shack Dwellers team were given over the course of the race. I think it was something like 100 and something. But it was never taken like in a bad way. It's like, oh, all right, okay, well, we'll just give them the penalty back. And I mean, for that race in particular, we raised, including gift aids, I think well over £100,000, which is just insane. What a crazy amount of money for an amazing cause. And it's nice to hear the stories of the people that's helped over the time that we've been doing this. 'Cause that's why we do it. We don't do it for any other reason. And I think being a YouTuber and being air quotes influencer is a really big responsibility that not many people take very seriously. It's just like a way to make money or live a crazy lifestyle. But I think that, especially in this space, because a lot of people in sim racing who do suffer from sort of problems of their brain, it's good to sort of to show that this is important stuff. This is what the important stuff actually is. It isn't, oh, guys, I bought another stupid car. It's, guys, we're putting on something that makes a difference. And it's a privilege to be able to do it every year. And I'll keep doing it until I stop being a YouTuber or get cancelled. Whichever comes first.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Crikey. No, Jimmy, from me and from the community, thank you for putting the event on every year and what it's grown to today. Obviously, it's a massive team effort with everybody who's involved, but it's ultimately you put it together. And a special shout. I know I gave them some stick, but a special shout out to the race directors, especially Oscar. I give them so much stick.
Poor Oscar, mate. He said this year he was like, Jim, I don't know if I can do it, mate. I was like, you can do it, Oscar, it'll be fine. And we got him loads of help this year, and he really enjoyed the experience this time. So that was good. But yeah, it's as you say, Luke, it's not just me. There are so many people behind the scenes who make it work because of the aforementioned lack of basic admin skills on my part. And without those guys, the event would just be a mess. But now it's a glorious mess, which is what we aim for. So yeah, looking forward to this year's one.
My favourite moment is when 0-1 got given a penalty and Max disputed it because we're number 1, not 0-1. And Oscar just, I don't know what to say. What can I do?
I think Oscar is just beyond giving a fuck at that point. He's like, yeah, whatever. I just whatever. You're going to get another penalty anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So good. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time. I'll give you a chance now to plug all of your socials. Where can people find you?
I mean, just search Jimmy Broadbent, I mean, I think that's just my name. That's all it is. And if you want to come say hello, say hello. If not, then go donate to Mind. There you go. That's a better thing you can do with your time.
Yeah. we'll make sure we'll put all the links below. I say we. Someone will put the links below. That's not my responsibility. I'm afraid. Awesome stuff. Thank you for being our first ever guest on the SimRacing Expo. Make sure you guys leave a like or leave a comment, and maybe leave a comment as to who you want to see on the Expo podcast in the future, and we'll see what we can do about getting them on. But yeah, from me and from Jimmy, we'll see you next time.
Bye.